How do you get your news? Mostly online or print?
I mostly get my news online.
I usually go online.
Go online.
Okay.
I'll read a paper if I happen to have it.
Okay, so you don't pay for any news online?
No, I don't pay for it.
Do you ever pay for news? Do you pay for any content online? Any news? No.
We're at a stage now where there is a lot of experimentation going on. That is, everybody's looking for a new business model on how to pay for the journalism. It is not that people don't want the journalism anymore. It's just a matter of how you fund it.
My name is Stephen Lohman. I'm an editorial aide at the Washington Post. I've been there about 2.5 years. Right now I work mostly for the Book World section, which does book reviews and a blog. And I also work a fair amount for the magazine. I don't know, in 20 years, will I be working for a newspaper? I think the chances are probably not. I think the platforms are changing and the way we get our news is changing. But I do think the day-to-day aspects of it, picking up a phone, talking to people, checking sources, I think that sort of stuff will continue. But when you're checking out these, job postings, you have to, be familiar with HTML. You have to know how to, shoot video and edit video and, work with movable type. All these things are just standard now. And let me tell you, I cannot honestly say I'm super familiar with a lot of those things. So it is kind of distressing, and that's actually my weak spot.
Well, there is no longer a distinct breakdown among print and broadcast and online journalism or other kinds of forms of journalism. Journalism students now come to this program and graduate from this program with the idea that they can tell stories in several different ways, and so they need to know the skills. They need to know how to tell a story using video and photography and how to write well. And there isn't going to be such thing as a print journalist anymore. Everybody has to do a little bit of everything and be familiar with the technologies. The other is that you have to be entrepreneurial. Nobody's going to work for the same news organization for 40 years anymore. You're going to have to make your own way.
I was at the Washington Times from 2001 to 2009. I spent 2 years covering the Baltimore Orioles, 2 years covering the Washington Redskins, and then 5 years covering the Washington Nationals, all of it for the sports department, which no longer exists. They eliminated the sports department at the end of December 2009. What's funny is that really up until maybe a month or so before it happened, we all thought we were in better shape than most newspapers around the country. I'm not sure why. I think in part because the Times it wasn't part of a big chain. It's not owned by a big conglomeration or anything. It was a singularly owned newspaper. We knew they were losing money, and they always had been, but the sense was always that they were willing to take the losses. And in fact, over the last year or so before this all happened, they were spending more to increase coverage and to add staffing and to beef up their website. And so as I saw a lot of colleagues at other newspapers around the country either being laid off or having the fear of it, in a lot of ways I almost felt like, boy, our place may actually be a good place to be at the moment. And then finally at the end of November or so, there was some internal turmoil at the paper, and all of a sudden the editor-in-chief resigned, and a few higher-ups were fired, and you started hearing rumblings that that ownership was looking to make some drastic cuts. And about a week after that, early December, they announced they were going to lay off at least 40% of the company. it was difficult seeing that things were still going on, particularly with my team that I covered. I know it was the off season, but there were still things happening with them, and I had no outlet, you know, to report on it. So, but a few of our other writers had already kind of launched their own blogs covering their beats, and in part because some of those were still in the middle of their seasons, like our Capitals writer and our Wizards writer. I had thought about maybe doing it, but I wanted to wait, number one, because it was the middle of the off season, and number two, I was still waiting to hear if there would be a couple job possibilities that might come up. Once I found out those weren't going to happen, at least there was nothing immediate on the horizon, and we were starting to get closer to baseball season, I decided, okay, I think it's time to start this thing and see where it goes. Okay. The initial idea was basically just to create a site that allowed me to keep covering the team in some capacity, and more than anything, just to be able to show possible employers that I was still in tune with the team, and that you know, I had my contacts. I could still, you know, I still had a presence around here. So I decided to do that. I launched it on February 1st, not really with any expectation beyond that. And within the first week, I could see I was getting a lot of traffic, and a lot of people had found this and were interested in it and supporting it. It was a week after I launched the blog, February 8th, that I put up the campaign to cover spring training. I set a goal of $5,000, which I thought which was lower than what we used to spend when I was at the newspaper. But I figured I could make it work for that, and without any real advertising other than a few other, like I said, these other bloggers that maybe promoted it themselves on their sites, I hit the goal in 29 hours. Wow. And by the end of the week, had more than doubled my goal. In a lot of ways, what I'm doing is pretty similar to what I did for the newspaper, just in a different, you know, forum. Okay. And that was also important to me, is to try to still do what I call real journalism, and not just blogging, or not just shooting from the hip. I wanted to have reporting. I wanted to be covering the team like I was before as a beat writer. If I knew that this was sustainable and I could make it work and do it long term, I absolutely would continue to do it, because it's just been so much fun to just kind of do this on your own.
What do you think it'll take for consumers to get used to paying for news again?
It'll be generational.
Okay.
I think, and I think that if in some big American city before too long, the newspaper that is the mainstream newspaper will go out of business, and there won't be one. It could be in San Francisco, where the San Francisco Chronicle is on life support. For a while, it looked like it might be the Boston Globe. Mm-hmm. Then we'll see. We'll see when, in the absence of a major daily newspaper in a big American city, what will fill the gap, and we'll get the answer to your question when that happens.
They say an end can be a start. Feels like a barbarian, it's still alive. It's like a bad day that never ends. I feel the chaos around me, a thing I don't try to deny. I better learn to accept that there are things in my life I can't control. They say love is nothing but a sore. I don't even know what love is. Too many tears I've had to fold. Don't you know I'm so tired of